welcome to my next video. Today's video I'm going to be doing a complete tune-up on my 2011 F250, and this applies to all of your 2011-2016 Super Duties with a gas 6.2 liter engine. It's a similar procedure on the F150 that came with optional 6.2, such as the Raptor, and this also is applicable to the newer F250s. Might be just a little bit different, the 17 and up with the 6.2 engine. But if you're not aware, your engine has 2 spark plugs per cylinder for a total of 16 spark plugs for the V8 engine. And on each side you have your coil unplug on the top, and so you have a spark plug down inside the head like a traditional modular Ford engine. Then you have a wire running from the coil down the side of the engine and near the exhaust manifold where the second plug goes in. So it makes it a little bit more work. It's not too bad though. Honestly, I think the hardest part will be changing the plugs that are lower, just because they're harder to get to. And the plugs up here are relatively easy. The Ford shop manual says to remove the air intake, which will make it easier if you want to do that. But you can also do it with leaving it on there just as easy. I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so the supplies that you need to do this, you need spark plugs. So in my case, I went with the Motorcraft SP-526. These are OEM replacements, like a double platinum tip, and they served my purpose as well. The original plugs, and I'm kind of a proponent of going OEM, so I'm just going to continue using these. You also need, I have a gap checking tool here. These plugs are pre-gapped from the factory to, it's about 0.42 to 0.46, but I like to check it just to make sure. The little 8mm socket to take the coils off, to unbolt the coils. I use a little bit of anti-seize on the plugs. Ford doesn't specifically require that, but I put just a touch on there. Makes my torque readings better when I'm tightening them back down. And then dielectric grease. This is for the boots of your coils when you put it back together, and your spark plug wires. You also need a 5/8 inch spark plug socket and your various extension sizes so you can get to your plugs. Then in my case, I'm also replacing all the coil packs on the truck at the same time. This is an optional step and only necessary if there's a problem with your coils. In my case, some of them had corrosion. If you saw my last video, you saw that I had already had to replace one of the coils and rebuild another. So I'm just going to go ahead and replace every single coil with brand new ones, just to avoid any problems that may arise in the future. So Ford recommends performing this procedure on a warm engine, so not hot, not cold, but warm. And the best way I could say to accomplish that is maybe to run the truck for 5 minutes before you get started. And I'm actually going to start with the lower spark plugs because I think they're harder, so I want to get those done first. So I'll just pop the wires off down each side on the lower portion first, pull the plugs out one at a time and replace them. Also, if you have compressed air, it's a good idea to blow out the spark plug wells before you take out the plugs, especially on the top. That way no debris falls down inside of the engine through the spark plug hole. So if we come down in the wheel well and we look in here, you can see there's the 2 rear, actually 3 rear spark plugs on the bottom. So I should be able to reach up inside through the wheel well here. And obviously it would make it easier if you jacked up the truck, took the wheel off, and pulled out this wheel well liner here. Probably make this job very, very easy. But I think I can get to it without doing that with a few extensions and just reaching up in here. Just be kind of hard to show on camera. And then you can see the other 2 front ones, they're back in here. And then I might be able to even, get to it from the top of the engine, reaching down inside. But you'll definitely have to have something to stand on. And the Super Duties are pretty tall, and it's impossible to reach over the top of the truck unless you're like 8 feet tall. Alright, so I was able to reach down from the top and pull the boots off. You want to make sure you grab it by the boot, not the wire, otherwise you will definitely damage it. If we look down in there, everything looks like it's in good shape. If you want to inspect your wires for any cracking or age, in this case these all look really, really good. So I'm just gotta get this last one off here. Like I said, you want to reach underneath. Alright, so wiggle it loose and you'll get them off. Just takes a little bit of patience. Helps if you turn them back and forth a little bit and then pull on them. Alright, so I've got them all loose on this side, or I should say all the boots off. So now I'm going to take the plugs out. Alright, so I've got, it's hard to see, but I've got on the first one over here. Gotta break it loose. So once you break it loose, if you're doing it from the top like I am, it helps to have an assistant down below, kind of keeping an eye. Make sure when you're putting the wrench in the hole in the first place. Alright, so we've got the spark plug out. Now we'll go on to the other three on this side and do them the same way. Alright, so here's one of the old one I just removed. Here's the new one. So on the lower ones, these actually weren't horrible. Just got a lot of discoloration and such, but I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize just on the thread, make sure you don't get it on the tip. Thread this back in. I'm going to do them one at a time. So as I take one out, I'm going to put one in. That way there's no open holes into the engine. So when you're putting it back in, I'm just using a regular 5/8 socket. That way the socket doesn't get stuck on the end of the plug with the rubber gasket. But you want to turn it in by hand until it stops. Never try to put this in with a socket, like a ratchet or especially some kind of electric tool or something, because the heads are aluminum and if you cross thread it, you're screwed. So always do it by hand, and it should go, especially with anti-seize on there, all the way until it stops like this. And then you'll want to torque it down to 18 foot-pounds. I just do it by hand because I know how it should feel. These kind of, they don't really even tighten down, they just come to a stop pretty much. Then you want to snug them down. Alright. Like I said, put a little bit of your dielectric grease in your boot, and then I'll go ahead and reconnect the boot now so everything is done with that first plug. Alright, I've got this first two done, this side. Now loosen up the third one. You see it's on there. I can probably be easier to put the socket on from above and get that out. Just turn it right out, put it right back in, then we'll do our last one. Alright, this last one on the bottom and the back here, it's kind of shoehorned against the firewall. So I was able to get a small extension. And then get our socket on. That's all the room you have. I'll just break it loose here. Once we break it loose, just be able to turn it out. But yeah, the small extension is the only thing that fits because you just get this little nook in the firewall that it fits. Okay, so we've got this whole side done on the lower portion. Now we're going to start working on the top. So first thing you want to do is disconnect this end from your coils. And again, I'm going to do these one at a time. Go ahead and start up here in the front to get this connection undone from your coil pack. This little red part, if you take a little flat blade screwdriver and pop the red tab, you're just going to move it forward slightly. Then you can push down on the connector and pull it off. And then, like I said, there's this one 8mm bolt on each coil that needs to come out. And then you'll pull it straight up and out, and the boot will come out of here, and then we'll blow it out with some compressed air before we remove each spark plug one at a time. Alright, so once you get your 8mm bolt out, just kind of wiggle the boot out like that. And this is what it should look like. It's hard to see, but there should be no corrosion in the end of your coil pack. If there is corrosion, you need to at least rebuild it, and if it's too bad, you'll have to replace your coil pack. That's why I'm just replacing them all. Alright, so start taking this plug out here. Alright, these top ones are a lot worse than the bottom ones as far as wear. Alright, so I'll start it to hold the plug with the rubber socket with this little one. I'll start it in there, then I'll finish it up with the regular socket. That way it doesn't get stuck down in the well. I'll tighten it up with that. So again, I'm going to turn it in by hand until I can't turn it anymore. We'll get those tight, and we'll remember 18 foot-pounds. It's not too tight. Alright. Alright, so we take a new coil, same thing, put some dielectric grease down in it. And the coils are specific to the side of the engine. They're different for this side versus that side. So make sure you put the right one in. And we'll just work it down in there. And it'll bottom out, and then we bolt it back into place and reconnect our wires. All right, make sure you put a little dielectric grease in your spark plug wires as well. And then when you put these back on, make sure you don't accidentally plug, you know, this wire into here. It will reach. Make sure you've got your correct plugs plugged back in. Otherwise you will have all kinds of problems. Alright, feel it click, push the red dot forward. Now that one's done, we'll move on to the next one. And all these ones on this side and the top are the same, so I'm not going to show you each one of those individually. But when we get to the other side, it's going to be a whole different story. Alright, I don't know if you can see that. This is the number 2 coil that I took out, and it's got a lot of corrosion down in it. If I break it apart here, pull it apart, you can see all the corrosion all over the spring there. That is what you do not want it to look like. So that's why I'm replacing all these, because there's a lot of corrosion, and it will cause a weak spark. Eventually, when this corrodes enough, it destroys these, like you saw in my other video, and leads to problems with your engine running. So this is just a maintenance thing. Alright, well, I've got this whole driver's side of the engine done, top and bottom. My new coil's in. So since the engine's cooled back down now, I'm going to go ahead and start it up, make sure everything's working good so far, and then that'll also let it warm back up a little bit so I can get started on the other side. Alright, so now for the passenger side. A lot more going on over here. You got the battery in the way, you got the oil dipstick tube for the transmission, the oil lines, you got these heater hoses here. It's definitely still possible to get to the top ones without removing all this stuff. It's just a little more tricky. But now we're going to start at the bottom. To me, it looks like we're going to have to remove this wheel well liner to make it a lot easier. if that was out of the way, we'd have really easy access to all these bottom ones. Alright, so here on the passenger side, a bunch of little 5.5 millimeter bolts that secure that. This piece here, and there's some 8 millimeter bolts, 3 of them, and all you need to do is get it kind of out of the way. You'll see here on the passenger side, you can easily get to 3 of them. The 4th one is just on the other side of this, this tower here, this coil spring tower, so it's kind of hard for me to show you, but I'm about to reach it. So same thing over here, carefully pull your boots, all of them, making sure not to pull by the wire, and then we'll pop these spark plugs out and get them changed out. Alright, so the one issue back here is this dipstick tube for the automatic transmission is right in the way. So you have to use a short extension in your 5/8" socket and just get just enough, torque to break it loose, and then just slowly work it out so you can get in there and take it out by hand. These next 2 should be a little bit easier because it's a straight shot. You can put a nice long extension on there and get them out easy. The hardest one on this side is actually probably this front one because it's behind here. You kind of have to work blind. But use that short extension again. Hardest part is getting it broke loose. Once you get it broke loose, you can turn it out by hand with the socket. Alright, so there's that last plug. Now I've got them all out. I did it a little different. I want to get quite a bit of oil on it. A lot of carbon on these lower plugs on both sides, I've noticed. But I can get them all put back in. Alright, once you get your plugs all back in, make sure you put your grease in your boots. Check your wires, make sure they're in good condition. Obviously now's the time to replace them if they're not. And then when you snap your boots on, just like any spark plug change, make sure you hear it click in place. Turn it. Just give it a little tug, make sure it's on there tight. Alright, now we'll get this all buttoned back up down here and start on the top. Alright, so up top, passenger side, same thing. Remove all your wiring. Use your screwdriver to remove your red clips. And then we'll start taking out our coils so we can get the plugs out. Just like the other side. Alright, so just a couple tips. First thing, you can remove these heater hoses. There's just a clip. And then this harness from this piece here gives you a little more room to access that first coil to get it out. The second coil I was able to get out, but I could not get the new one back in without this air box was just too in the way. So what I did is there's one 8 millimeter bolt I removed here, and it allows me just to lift this up just enough to I was able to slide it back into place. So you don't have to take the whole thing off. Just take that one bolt out, lift this up. You'll be able to finagle it back down in there. Then these last 2 in the back should be easy to do. There's nothing really in the way of those 2. Alright, got everything back together up top. We're buttoned up. Gotta try it out, make sure everything's working good. This is what I used the whole time to step up and into the engine. It's a pretty good step. It works pretty nice. You'll need that or a ladder or something to do this job. Alright, let's fire her up here. Alright, so we're done. Hopefully the video is helpful. Maybe give you an idea of something you can tackle yourself. Honestly, it's not hard. It's just kind of time consuming. It actually took a little longer than I thought it would. It took me almost 4 hours to get everything done. It's just because, you know, just getting in there and being careful and loosening everything by hand takes some time, unfortunately. So, you know, I've seen people quoted anywhere from $500 to over $1,000 for a dealer to do this job. So, you know, who wants to pay that just for a tune-up? It's ridiculous. It is a little bit more cumbersome than, you know, like an old car or something, but then again, at least it's not a 5.4 liter where you got to worry about the spark plugs breaking off. So hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, give it a like. If you have any questions, leave a comment below and subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.